former quiet kids of Reddit, how did life for you change after high school? I'm still quiet, but now people realize that I'm a great listener and everyone tells me things they usually don't tell anyone. I'm trustworthy for no reason lol. I got louder. I ended up working in a grocery store that prided itself on customer interaction, so I ended up being forced to converse with strangers. Ends up, conversation is a skill, and like all skills, you can improve with practice. People assumed I was quiet in HS because I was smart, which really fed my ego. Now people assume I'm quiet because something's wrong with me, which is really sapping from my ego. I'm in college and still quiet. I discovered alcohol and realized I'm actually a lot of fun and have tons to talk about. Who knew? I've gotten better. Started late within high school, and during senior year I was no longer considered the quietest kid. I was still quiet, but not the quietest. Now in college it changes depending on who I'm talking to. For some reason, I feel more comfortable talking with some but not others. The talkers. I'm talking about the friendly non-stop talkers who can talk about anything are the easiest to talk to, obviously for that still somewhat quiet kid, but I'm working on it. Woman with downcast face, raised fist. I moved out and was no longer outshone by my parents and family. I dared to open up more and kinda found myself. I have a job that requires me to host meetings, establish rapport with clients and vendors, and everyone thinks I'm an outgoing extrovert. I am not. It's torture every day. I cringe every time the phone rings. I would love to just have a quiet, stay in my cubicle all day kind of job. Or better yet, be able to work from home. Looking forward to a quiet retirement someday. I was ugly and quiet, now I'm just ugly. I understand the reason why I am quiet, and I've made peace with it. It sounds like thanks and your advice, but you just need to accept that's how you are, and stop caring about what other people think. It took me a long time to also figure out that my ADHD also has a part in it. Also the S most people talk about is stupid nonsense anyway. It didn't change. I'm on the spectrum, and I was subject to absolutely vicious bullying in school. It's safer for me to keep my mouth shut. I work in a lab with other former, quiet kids, and now we're all loud and cracking obscene jokes with each other. Turns out I'm not quiet, I'm polite, and most things that go through my head aren't easy for normal people to like. I'm now the quiet man. I'm still quiet. Worked very hard at not being quiet, and realized I had something to offer, and that the stakes are usually very, very low if a conversation doesn't go well. I was quiet because I had low self-esteem, etc. So luckily I was able to improve that. One light that got turned on just a few years after high school was someone said they thought I was a snob. So probably a bunch thought I had been a snob. Though it was the opposite, I felt I was not worth taking up someone else's time. It would have looked exactly the same on the outside. So the fact that I was walking around making people feel bad didn't sit right with me, and I tried my best to make people at least comfortable. The friends I had in high school were the reason I was the quiet one. They constantly made me feel outspoken and unfathomable. I cut them off as soon as I graduated and found better friends. I am now very outgoing, extroverted, and definitely louder. As a quiet kid in high school right now who wants to be more open, you guys are giving me some hope. I'm still quiet and even more of a loner than before now, since college is only a few days per week lol. In high school I thought I was an introvert, but after I stopped being forced to socially interact like 9 hours a day 5 days a week, I realized I was actually not as introverted as I thought, and I missed the time spent with friends in high school. It just felt like too much at the time, and number X200B, so I took steps to meet new people and come out of my shell in college, starting with clubs and study groups, later with club sports and work, and I really tried to make an effort to make people feel important when I talked to them, even if I was still not the chattiest person in the world. Now I am done with college and moved very far away from home, but I still try to do this, and I try to prioritize spending time socializing and saying yes to every invite I can. I didn't change at all. I married the quiet guy from the class before mine. I became much more outgoing over time, became a teacher, have a soft spot for the quiet kids and always try to connect with them. Found people who I actually wanted to talk to. There's this Goldilocks zone of closeness that hits my comfortability with someone. I feel like I can talk to people I don't know better than those I kinda know. I tend to forget names a lot, then I get comfy again once they get close. This is when I tend to be loudest and most outgoing. After that they get too close and I'm kinda worn out and sorta push them away. I've since learned that those who stuck with me the longest tend to be the ones I push away, so now I don't do that anymore, or at least am aware of it and actively avoiding it. It's sorta the uncanny valley of being comfy. If you're close to me but not quite there yet, it just feels strenuous to me. But once you're really close to me, like peak closeness, then I can finally be truly comfortable and open up to you. I can't really think of anyone reaching this point yet, maybe my ex or one of my old friends, but life tends to find a way to pull them thousands of miles away from me, literally. During uni, people described me to be a social butterfly. Best friend called me a social whore. She wasn't wrong, lol. First, a customer-facing job. Others have covered this well. Practice. The other thing is that as an adult, being quiet is considered more of a personality type and not so much a dysfunction that requires constant attempts at intervention. And that goes a long way. Gained a huge amount of confidence in a hurry when I was all of a sudden no longer surrounded by both authorities and peers who assumed something must be wrong with me. Someone I knew from before told me that I am now too loud in group conversations. Every time I leave a group conversation, I get self-conscious if I was too loud again. Also, after one-on-one conversation, I get self-conscious if I talk too much, and if the other person felt like I didn't let them speak enough or that I didn't listen to them. Furthermore, I now tend to drag out goodbye conversations to an extent that I feel like I am holding up the person. Moved away for college, and somehow ended up becoming very outspoken and opinionated. Think of the stereotypical, loudmouth atheist, neckbeard, mellowed out in recent years, and am now months away from getting a PhD in a biomedical field. I've been able to overcome my shyness after working as a sales associate at a vape store. People would compliment on how well I was able to make them buy something they could have gotten cheaper. So I tackled my fear of social anxiety and pushed myself further to actually hold a decent conversation with someone random. Thanks to my dysfunctional childhood, codependent mom who treated my very treatable chronic health issues as if I were an invalid, still prefer solitude and quiet, and try to avoid attracting attention in general, I have managed to adapt well enough to finish my BS degree after dropping out of university shortly after HS and build my IT career so that nowadays I have a good job with solid benefits. I hate the silence now if I'm with others. It's just awkward to have a bunch of people in one place and no one talking, so I step up and fill the void with history of my favorite video games. Sometimes my old roommate will groan, "Ugh, the silence is okay. We don't need a 2 hour history lesson on Demon Hunters, you nerd." If it's just me and another person like my husband, I'm pretty content just plugging in my headphones and reading a book on a long car ride. So for me it just depends on who I'm around at the time. I ended up moving and made friends with some louder and more popular kids, so I ended up conforming. Nothing changed in just being paid to waste 8 hours of my life 5 days a week. Been a lot better. I doubt most people in my high school knew I even existed. All I did was sleep in class and didn't talk to many people. I had some friends, but they graduated before I did as they were a year older, so I went my senior year in HS sleeping, gaming and no social contact really outside of school. I enjoyed it, but I don't do that anymore. I have a good job, good friends, and I go out and do stuff that would have terrified teenage me. I still don't like socializing all that much, but I still socialize a lot more than I used to. Life's great, and trust me when I say that I was the definition of a quiet kid, still a quiet person in general. Went to college, joined a fraternity on a bet. Everything changed. Gained confidence and became quite boisterous and very outgoing. Became a visiting nurse. Some days you have an audience of friends and family besides the patients, so you have to interact. One word of advice: ask at least once during your visits about their photos on the wall. People love to show off family and friends, and you can learn a lot about your patient that way. During college met new friends. Went to parties a lot to the point I'm confident enough to socialize. I'm outgoing as F now. Back then, you couldn't get me to speak unless we were friends. I was rather babble-filled to them, but to everyone else, I was fairly quiet. Years later, I got better with people and became outgoing. Had I been like that all those years ago, I would absolutely have been a stupidly popular kid. Crazy, right? A college friend literally called me the most extroverted person they know. My best friend from high school and I hang out once a year, just about. He lives overseas now for various reasons. He came all the way over to my college for a weekend while back in the States in my senior year of undergrad. Before that, we had always hung out with just our families and each other when he was around. After 2 nights of going out that weekend, he said, "Third account, I forgot, what the hell happened to you?" We had a good laugh about how we had grown. In this case, unexpectedly, I had borderline crippling social anxiety in high school, but got much more of a "F it, who cares" outlook in college that helped fix most of it over the years, and with some effort. It still pops up randomly now and again in specific circumstances that surprise people who assume I was always outgoing, but I love to meet new people and just hang out with friends now. Before, new people scared the S out of me. I had a kid with special needs and found my voice to be his advocate. I was very quiet around people I wasn't friends with. But since having to undergo making new friends twice in 2 years at college and now at work, I've gotten louder and more confident within myself. I've also talked to plenty of people at the football and in pubs clubs. It's amazing how alcohol makes you chatty about absolute bulls. I became an alcoholic to make friends, somehow graduated college despite being constantly fed up. Got married to a guy I met in college, got pregnant, stopped drinking and drugs, had another kid, realized my introversion was actually mental illness that developed as a result of my childhood, got it treated somewhat, got pregnant again, spiraled, got back on Reddit to pass the time until this baby is out of my body and I'm not as much of a train wreck. When I first went to community college, I was required to take a speech class. My first speech was a miserable, nerve-wrecked performance. I told myself that I am never going to let that happen again, and did my best to pull myself together for my next speech. I eventually joined the speech and debate team. I wasn't great, mind you, but it helped me speak in front of other people. I am also going to jump out on a limb and assume that you are generally a kind person. In high school, rebellious activities are seen as desirable, at least I think so. I was never popular in high school. However, the pendulum swings back as adults, and being a good person goes a really long way in people wanting to talk to you. Just being good to people is a great way to at least endear yourself to most people. I realized I wasn't quiet because there was something wrong with me. I was quiet because all the people around me were loud assholes who constantly put me down whenever I spoke up. Sophomore year of college I finally made some real friends. Turns out, people actually like me a lot when their first impression isn't dictated by the popular high school bullies. I reluctantly got a restaurant job and I had to learn how to act more friendly. I ended up meeting lots of new people and having a total personality change through that job, especially after I graduated and didn't have to carry around all my high school anxiety. I believed for the first time that I wasn't completely useless and people are capable of liking and caring about me. Got a lot more confident when I forced myself to be more independent by moving out of my parents' place and got my own apartment. Confidence builds willingness to share and be loud in your opinions, so that's basically what happened. I had an opportunity to visit Israel with a church group right after high school, so I splurged on a good camera for the trip. I discovered that I really enjoyed photography, so when I went to college I signed up to work for the school newspaper. It forced me to get out and about on campus and gave me access to cool places like the baseball dugout or backstage at a play, and the newspaper staff who's composed of smart, liberal, and sincerely nice people that helped open the eyes of a quiet, conservative Christian to a broader world. Years later I'm still Facebook friends with many of those folks, and I'm so glad that I bought that camera. Got diagnosed with some things and have learned to cope with my environment better. I'm much more sociable now. I just had too low of a self-esteem to think people like me. I've always been naturally funny though, my main issue was just getting out of my shell. Still kinda quiet though, gotta repeat myself or raise my voice a lot. I talk softly. I went to college to become a teacher. I'm still a little quiet but not nearly as quiet as when I was in high school. Working in retail helped a lot in forcing myself out of my shell to make friends did too. I had a lot of rumors spread about me during middle and high school, so I couldn't make many friends. I eventually stopped trying, cause I would just be made fun of. Then when I went to college and nobody knew me, I ended up with a good-sized group of friends, regularly got invited to parties, and finally regained confidence in myself. I was bullied pretty bad in school. I was the shy and creepy quiet kid, just wanted my damn peace and read my book, and one day I snapped, outed myself as a lesbian, shaved my head and joined my local punk scene. I quickly changed schools after that, made a lot of friends and became an outgoing and energetic person who just simply never shuts up and is loved by their friends. I don't think I'm happier than my old school self, but I'm definitely more myself, and I know that I would have never met all my wonderful friends or experienced any of the crazy and cool adventures if I stayed my old self. Was always into cars, got real big into cars after high school. Went to a bunch of car meets and just got to meet a bunch of people and break out of my shell because boom, common interests. Which was one reason I was the quiet kid, as I didn't feel anyone shared similar interests to me in high school. Well, I realized that I was 6 feet and not bad looking, so I found out that if you say the right thing at the right time, the opposite sex eats it up. Serious answer here, I don't think I ever fit in with any crowd in high school. I got good grades, but I wasn't nearly as competitive like the real hardcore top 10 students who were gunning for the Ivy Leagues, so the nerds didn't associate with me. I was a former band geek, but stopped playing because I didn't want to get to school at 6:30 in the morning, and so I kinda stopped hanging out with that group. I didn't fit in with the rest of the Asian kids because I didn't have money to soup up my car. I drove the family van to school or bleach my hair. As a result, I was super shy and quiet and was mostly anonymous, even though I was well over 6 foot tall in high school. I guess when we all go to college for the as young naive freshmen, we're all alone and we just try to make friends with the people around us. It was in college that I realized that people liked me for who I was. Even the girls. I found friends who liked video games and anime and sports as much as I did. I found a group of friends to play tennis with. I was helping carry heavy furniture up to the 3rd floor of our dorms for random girls. I came back to my hometown that first summer and my 3 high school friends were just blown away by my transformation. I was talkative, funny, and gregarious. I had a girlfriend. I went to frat parties. I had a huge circle of friends and had text messages blowing up my phone all the time. I remember my friend's exact words. "Who are you? So you're having a good time at college, huh?" The change has been permanent too. When I tell people that I was the really shy, introverted, super quiet, nerdy kid that had few friends in high school, no one believes me. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to hear more of the best posts.